Sweet. All right. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I know this is like we're running like hour 4 of these event things, but it's been super cool to watch everybody here. I feel like unjustified in my opportunity to be with such amazing people. I'm friends with everybody on this panel, but also just look up to all of them as founders. So that's been just so great to have everybody here. I wanted this panel, so we're focused on software, like basically the same thing that Vevo did, but from the software perspective. My mindset is kind of, as I said at the beginning, we have a lot of scary things going on, and there's a bunch of changes, and like being in climate it's a tough time for it. But there are a lot of things that are definite. We know for sure that we need more energy to be built. With data centers going like crazy. Like, we're not going to have any sort of tariffs like just stopping the development of solar farms and stuff. So that makes me feel good in the energy space that the future is not so bleak. So what I wanted to focus on with this panel is for people who are in software, what types of things are we confident and certain in? What fundamentals are there that are irrevocable? And why can we feel hopefully good about the future? So with that, I'll go down. You're not saying in the order that I brought up my cape. You're good. You're totally good. Yeah, we'll go down the line. I can switch in a time. And what I want to hear is, so starting with you, Peter. Your name, which actually is incredibly perfect for your company. Your name, company, like what you do, the stage, and then the goal of the company initially and now.
Maybe we can re-slice it. How about this? Okay. Here, my name's Peter Light, and CEO and co-founder of Lumen Energy. We enable commercial real estate owners to figure out where they can make money, cut carbon, deploy solar batteries, EV charging across. There are hundreds or thousands of building portfolios. So our customers today are companies like Uveen or AT&T that have hundreds or thousands of buildings. There's like, I know this makes sense somewhere, but until now, I couldn't figure out where we actually should go do this. And we have a marketplace to help them go get the best value. So we're a Series A stage company. What did I miss?
And was the goal different initially, and you pivoted at all, or is this kind of?
I think the goal has always been consistent, like make it easy for people to do what they say they want to do anyway, which is make money. And if they can cut carbon, great. Like, let's do that. And commercial real estate is a particularly financially driven market. So that's consistent. Our path to how we do that has evolved.
Nice. All right, now in terms of like what fundamentals enabled us to be a sustainable business, regardless of government, what would you say is like what's the hard part that you're solving that will be there no matter what?
Yeah, well, I would say that maybe just to take a little step back to answer it. I spent a lot of time at Google X when I was there looking at a range of carbon-reduced things.
So yeah, feel free to raise your hand and jump in. Same thing for any of you. Crosstalk is great. Cynthia, tell us the same. Name, company, stage, and goal.
My name is Cynthia Wu. I'm the founder of Taro AI. We are pre-seed, and we build software for arborists. So how I got inspired to do this was, I had started looking at, a lot of, at my time at Google, satellite imagery, remote sensing, AI, I led this Xooglers product and a cool Google research, and we were looking at rooftops and seeing, how reflective they were. And I was like, how can we apply this to other things in our built environment? And then I looked at the trees. I was like, who's maintaining all of these trees and how expensive is it? And so I went on some tree walks with some cities, some different tree organizations, and I found that they were really inefficient. They were walking around one by one, noting the address of each one on a clipboard, right? It would write down like the health notes. They wouldn't even take a picture because this was all on a clipboard, and they would write down like what was wrong with it, maybe score it, and they did that one by one for like millions of trees in a city. And that astounded me because I was like, wow, we have imagery every few months of all of the city where you can see some of this data. Why aren't we using it? And so we're like, what if we could build software to help them save money, save time? Like, we were hoping for the same thing. Like, how can we make it easy for them to adopt it because it financially makes sense? What if we could enable them to cover, 5 times the amount of footage that they previously were able to? So it's kind of how I got started.
Cool. And wait, so why were they taking this data on trees?
Oh, because if you don't take care of them, then they'll fall on people, they'll fall on property. We don't like that. So, it's important for cities to, have an urban canopy, obviously, for shade purposes, for urban heat, and also for just breathing good air. Also, because no one likes to live in a place that looks bad. And so we have all these canopy goals for cities. But the maintenance is really difficult. And these inventories I found were costing over $1 million and taking over a year to complete. So by the time they would hire someone to do it, and then a year later, they get the data back, but it's already outdated. And so then they're stuck with outdated data that they can't really use well anyway.
Yeah, that's crazy. And I don't know if you're able to share. Do you know how much SF was spending on this before?
Our tree inventory was, I think, almost 10 years old, so same problem. And it also cost almost $1 million to complete. And I think it took 2 years to complete. Yeah.
It's insane.
So, yeah, this money is spent with our hard-earned taxpayer money, and, I just felt strongly that it should be done better. Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Luke? Same question to you.
Meaning of life. Name, company.
Name your company, stage, and what you're doing initially versus now.
Cool. Luke, co-founder, CEO, AlphaGrid. We exist to make EV charging infrastructure more money. When we started, we actually all worked at the same team at Google X at some period of time, somebody together. And it was all 3 of us, actually, yeah.
Me and Luke sat next to each other at work.
And why'd you leave, Cynthia? No, just kidding.
Let's not.
And we spent a lot of time thinking about the grid, and I loved X's thesis, which is it'd be helpful if there was a digital twin of the power grid. You had a map of electrons, you could help utilities run their operations smarter. But part of our, or at least my insight was that's really hard and still a ways in the future. And you can get really far if you optimize distributed loads. Load is just a consumption, right? Charging is the biggest one. And most people don't know, but the future of charging is about half the data center load expected of data centers plus AI. So that's a lot of power we need. And unlike data centers, which are usually transmission level, charging is at the edge. It's everywhere, right? It's in parking lots. And that's also a huge freaking problem. So utilities aren't really capable of managing this. So when we founded the company, I thought we would sell software to utilities that would help you flexibly interconnect chargers. In practice, it's very hard to sell to utilities and work with them, especially it was hard at Google, but you have the Google brand. It's very hard as 2 guys, in our pajamas selling software as a startup. So I think the fundamental thesis was still right. The fundamentals are good, but we ended up moving to operators, which is the other side of the meter. Who owns the asset? How do we actually control and optimize the asset itself and make those operators more money by setting prices, minimizing energy costs? I still think we get to the whole flexible interconnection bit in the future, but there's all these problems today around profitability and ops and maintenance and measuring utilization risk and stuff that we're solving for now. So optimization software for chargers.
Cool. So originally, you were helping people figure out how and where to install EV chargers, right?
Exactly.
Because that's super hard because we're just adding a huge electrical load onto the system. And it's just it's like installing a manufacturing plant in the middle of the city out of nowhere, and the wires will just explode.
Yeah. I even heard from PG&E about 100 transformers blew up one summer from some peaky EV charging load that was unmanaged. So, no quote me on that, but yeah, it happens and it's a problem.
Okay, so that sounds like a pretty big problem. And why did you have to pivot? Why did you realize like, wait, this is not the right business model for us? We should optimize the charging pricings there.
We were really students of solar, and in solar, there's a couple successful companies that streamline solar installations, and we were focused on kind of pre-deployment. The issue with charging is the biggest blocker isn't really like workflow electrification software. It's actually financing. I mean, it's cool. I can tell you where to build it, but that doesn't mean my customers have the capital to go build it. And the time in which they'd raise the capital with our data to go build it was a really like 6 to 12 months from there. So it was very hard to actually capture that value. Some of the data we sold early to our customers, they ended up raising like $50 million of equity. We got very little. So after that, that delay in the value created to value capture really forces us to be thoughtful about, oh, wait, this isn't like solar. It's actually a different industry.
That's awesome. I mean, that's the type of insight that would be really hard to think it through ahead of time and just decide what direction should go in. But, getting out, doing it, seeing what did and didn't work, and then figuring out where to pivot to is huge for it. And like, there was a very clear direction for you to pivot to. Sweet. And like,
focus on what's in the ground today, right? And then help them build later. But yeah.
And I mean, just to like really hammer home what you do now, like if I'm one of your customers, what will you be doing for me?
Yeah, if you own chargers, we can make you at least 25% more revenue within a couple weeks. And we take a small cut. Yeah.
I would like to own chargers at Shopkey. All right, so financing is a huge piece and huge problem of lots of different pieces of energy. And I'm really just saying that because that's a great segue into Adam.
Yeah, that was the transition for you.
Yeah, embarrassing.
Awesome. Great to see you all and some familiar faces from past Climate Weeks. I'm Adam Silver. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Plural. We are a financing platform for the distributed grid. What's special about us, unique, is we use blockchain-powered smart contracts to run our entire back office so that it can be automated and humanless. So what else? I talk about how it changed. So I honestly feel like every day is like a minor pivot of some kind, because you have to be continuously picking up information and making a decision on it. And so it's like every step is never exactly straight. It's like the left side to the right, and then you end up where you end up. So when we started Plural, we were like, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed. We're going to democratize access. And I really would recommend anyone whose pitch deck says democratized to like really question them, because it's so like first time founder, high hopes, like we're gonna conquer the world and everyone's gonna own solar assets, but that's a really, really tough distribution channel. And I think Tesla is a great model for this, where it starts with, we're gonna make I'm sure Musk's goal was to democratize access to electric vehicles, but they started by making a roadster. And so that's essentially how we pivoted around as well, where we're starting is by using our back office to make the marginal cost of adding an investor to your deal $0. And that is valuable to the existing investors in the energy space. And then you can go down the curve of to smaller and smaller dollar investors, and then you wake up in the distant future and you have then democratized access. So I would say we've pivoted in the short term to let's just make this the most easy to invest in private market in the world. And then eventually that will lead to bringing on massive flows of capital from democratized investors.
So what does it look like today before Plural? How do I put my personal money into, say?
Well, you can, I'm assuming, you could buy it on your house. You could go invest, you could log into your brokerage account, invest in a renewable ETF, which if you did that at any point in the past few years was like almost a guaranteed loser of money. You could find, like, if you're really rich, you could find like a tax broker to come like do some like maneuvers that makes your activity look like it's active income, and you get the tax price and you save millions of dollars. But basically, in short, it's not easy. And that is coming at a time when, if you're on the other side, I'm sure some people here work in the hardware space of some kind. So that'd be where like I imagine all of you are raising. But so if you're a middle market developer or hardware or putting hardware assets on the grid, you are killing your corporate balance sheet to build projects. So you end up in this deadly cycle where you're selling corporate equity or you're using corporate debt to go build a project. And then you build that project and you have a choice. Do you keep it on your balance sheet or do you sell it for cash and do it again? And you just end up in this hamster wheel. Next era, EDF, the big players do not do that. They do not finance their project level assets using corporate equity. And so that's what we're changing. We're making it possible for this market that is probably one of the most attractive infrastructure asset investment opportunities in the world to be more easy to invest in so that eventually we can bring it to RAAs, family offices, and then ultimately make it as easy to invest in solar as it is to buy an ETF. But instead of today's ETFs, you make money to double as much.
That's a great differentiator. Wait, actually,
Yeah, we're trying to do it. Yeah, you don't have to lose money investing in the clean energy future.
strong Slovene. Cool. Okay. And so we definitely need more financing in order to build more energy, right? That's the core.
Yeah. Yeah.
What does financing look like on the decarbonization, like CNI side, commercial building side?
It's core, it's essential, and it's great. We're bugging in. Yeah, please go up.
Are they financing it? Are these like manufacturers or whoever the building owner is? Yeah. Are they financing it themselves? Or are they going to banks to get the fundraising?
Thank you. And I'll layer in maybe something you sort of asked, like our own journey, is we originally thought, first, we wanted to make it easy for people to figure out, like, say the owner of this building, we're sitting in here. Like, that's what makes sense for me. And we first built the financial model in software to take in any address and just generate the IRR, invest your own cash. And we thought, of course, we're going to go to people and we're going to be just like, they're going to open the doors if it just like exceeds their IRR threshold. What we found is now there's a lot of buildings that are actually sitting on very good returns on paper, but there's a lot of reasons in the way commercial real estate is owned that people would say, well, she's like, I don't want to go to the Uster's office and like ask for capital budget approval for this weird thing that's called solar. Or, I don't know, there's like Jimmy's on his boat in the Bahamas and like can't approve, take the phone call. So like there are all these weird friction reasons why people deploying their own capital just get in the way if it's a new indifference. And I think maybe what, Lou talks to teams that are actually like, they're developing, owning these assets. And so they're in the business. So you'd be surprised, but it's still weird and different for real estate owners to invest in this adjacent asset class. I think a lot of people will over time. There are some companies that are leaders that are doing this that have said, hey, we have all this real estate. We should set up a team to go do this and set up our own fund to do this. Like companies like Public Storage or Prologis have done this already. But the vast majority of firms are not doing it. And what we've actually found is that they actually want third-party financing. They want someone else to own it and just to get the savings or the roof lease value, as it's called in the industry. And so what we've developed over time is make it simple for people to see all those options. But we didn't see that from day one.
Cool. No, God, I was going to follow up with that question. Can Plural raise money for this fund for still commercial buildings to have?
I believe we're actually already talking about this.
Oh, dear God. Great.
I think there is I mean, I'll just build on what you shared before. It's energy project finance is a like complex dark art, and there's like tax credit optimization. Like tax credits sound good, but to actually take advantage of them involves a lot of like tax maneuvering. And so I think what Plural is doing, like shielding people from that, just saying we're going to turn it into the income from it is huge. And we see that a lot. That just making the finance of it simpler is critical.
Cool.
I think if you imagine when you're investing in a stock, you have like some thesis about the business probably, but ultimately you're just like looking at the chart. You're not analyzing the structure of the company unless you're like a real professional investor. And that's kind of what we think this should be like. You don't have to understand tax equity or any of the complications of solar. You just can look at verified, trusted data and say, wow, this yields 15% and it's never missed a payment. And yeah, I'll invest in that. It's good for the world. So I think that's exactly where we'll go.
Cool. That's great. All right. Yeah. People can raise their hands and ask questions. Just read. Cool. All right. Next thing. I want to talk about just like what things feel certain. I mean, those kind of like about the fundamentals there that we've learned and yeah, underlie the businesses here. But from what you've learned, like what do you feel? What feels certain and like won't change or lay stitch? So from your perspective, Cynthia, I'm going different order. You sorry, Gabe. Yeah. So this was B2G, which honestly scares me a lot.
Sure.
If somebody is out here thinking about or currently starting something in B2G, what would set them up for success best?
Well, yeah, I will start off by telling you all that, yeah, we did start off being B2G. I saw all these trees in cities. They were mostly managed by the city government, right? And so these contracts were very large, but they were city contracts. And so I just thought I would sell in cities. And so I did a couple things. I got into like a GovTech accelerator based in Denver. I got into the City Accelerator. I was in the first cohort of the YesSF winners, which was this World Economic Forum like program working with cities. And so I thought, okay, I'm set up for success. I'm in all these programs. They're making all these introductions to cities. You know, if one of these is going to pan out as a pilot, and then we're going to fundraise. That took really long, and it's because cities can be quite, slow. People warned me about this, but I didn't listen because I'm starving. But yeah, they can just be slow. And if you want a contract that, the contracts that I was seeing come out were generated 2 years ago. And so for a startup, 2 years is a death sentence. You don't have 2 years to wait for your first customer. So I would say what would set you up for success is to find a faster customer, a faster first customer. It's okay to have a city be your eventual end goal customer with those larger contracts. But for starters, you can't start off with that as your first contract. And they also would not take a risk on you as your first pilot customer. Like they want to see some proof points too. And so what we ended up doing, and I think you saw this a lot when you were working with Utilities Loop, that they're also, slow to sell to. And so we ended up pivoting to working with private tree care companies. And we found that HOAs also needed inventories, and they were much easier to work with and much faster to like sign contracts with.
Cool. Yeah, that definitely makes sense. Kind of, it's not the same as the whole like Tesla starts with the Roadster and then works its way down, but yeah, I mean, starting like where you think you can make the best success and with the roadmap of where you can have the most impact. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Cool. Where do you think that's gonna go, like in the future? With like, do you think that's kind of the best way that any sort of city dependent challenges should be run?
In the future, I mean, I hope that, so I'm deciding to turn down the company this year and wind it down. We found that the market was just not big enough, the tree care market. The landscaping industry, 4 times bigger. Maybe that would have been a bigger one to your reports. In the future, I do hope that this is adopted by cities because, like I said, it's just so incredibly inefficient the way it is today. But yeah, I don't know, if that's going to happen soon because in some way it's definitely safer for cities to do things the way that they've done rather than adopt something new and have something go wrong. But when I was working with a lot of HOAs and arborists, I was seeing an uptick in these inventories due to new construction projects. That was like a really interesting insight that I had, was that in a lot of cities, in a growing number of cities, construction projects are mandated by locals to have an assessment done, a tree assessment done. And so about 30% of these inventories that these tree companies were doing were a result of this new construction, which I had no idea that was the case. So as construction continues, I do think that there will continue to be an uptick because here you have a lot of retiring arborists and a kind of shortage of new ones, and so they're going to be more and more constrained to do these inventories.
Gotcha. That's very cool. Yeah. Kind of a side note. One of the other events I was at, I forget where I heard this, but somebody described the coming retirement of many of the same types of people, electricians, arborists, etc. They called it the silver tsunami.
Yeah.
And like the opportunity for tech to either like lower the workload or just like scale the people who are filling in there. Like that's a big opportunity for sure. Arborists for us. So electricians, that's what's for. Yes. Yeah, the issue. Yeah. Thank you.
Hey, loving pen so far. Question for you guys. So, in designing software for this industry, I personally found that a lot of folks who are the ideal customer may not be using so much software today. They may be using some legacy software, but not necessarily using, let's say, modern software. I'm assuming no one here is deploying hardware, so it's primarily software go-to-market. How have you thought about designing your software to serve, let's say, a customer base that maybe is less software native? Have you found people are software buyers and software users in your markets? I'm curious how you've navigated that.
I'd say one or two insights is focus a lot on the problem, but focus more on who's your buyer. If there's not a budget for it that exists because they don't have purchase orders for that category of software, that's more uphill, challenge for you to sell into. So I think that leads to a second insight, which is channel partners are great. So if they buy software already that is adjacent to you, can you work with that channel partner and use their master service agreement or go into that buyer budget, that buyer conversation by enhancing something or bundling yourself with another software provider. But I think, especially in like energy and workflow electrification, these folks aren't digitally native. They don't live on their phone necessarily. It might be hard to convince them to buy something fancy when they just want to do their job faster.
I'm gonna respectfully reject the premise. I think that they don't use software in their jobs, but everyone uses software in some capacity. And so what we do at our team is we have this saying where we want it to have an institutional feel, but a consumer grade experience. So it should feel like you're investing in something serious, but it should be as easy as ordering an Uber or like we even played with the idea of swiping left and right on deals for institutional investors. Keeping that on the side for a bit, but it's gonna come out. But I think that Luke brings up Bitcoin, where it's about the budget too. And so we've actually designed our business model so that we make money as the renewable energy companies raise capital with us. So it's actually free to work with Plural, and you have this consumer grade software experience that ultimately we make money off of for using it.
And with that, if you can figure out what budget they do have, what price sets of budget do they have, and then figure out a way to kind of pitch yourself as that. So a lot of like the AI companies right now are pitching themselves as part of the hiring budget because you don't have to hire because you're using us to get that workflow down. My company Thresh, a lot of companies in the energy development space have an official like mandate to figure out how to use AI. Basically, they're like, I don't know what this is. We need something with AI, I'm sure. And so I can ask that question. Hey, do you have an intentional budget where you have to apply AI here? And so if you can figure out what sets of budget they may have, even if they don't have one for what you are, a lot of the job of sales and being a founder is like pitching yourself as something that works for how the listeners hear.
Mark, what % of customers in your pipeline are like hacking your solution with ChatGPT or something like it?
Well, 0% are allowed to because it's proprietary data, but many are doing.
Yeah, they definitely are.
I mean, we get this question a lot from like VCs when we're raising, as well as the customers. Basically, nobody successfully does it. They can put a single. We didn't really go into what my company does, so I'll just try to like abstractly say, in order to do what we do, you would probably lose every bit of the productivity gains that we give you. So, yeah, I guess where
Nice. Cool. We're
So
just
just-
so we're kind of setting up. Yeah.
I will say, if you are, so that's basically what we were building, right? The arborists are often retiring. They were using clipboards, right? And then we were like, what if you use a mobile app instead? And so I distinctly remember one of our pilot customers was an older gentleman who, I talked to him for an hour. He was excited. He signed up. But I would have to help him with really, really basic things about like, how do I create a site? How do I put a tree down on a location? So I would say, you have to make it really simple, design it really simple because you don't want to confuse them. But also, if they didn't buy software previously, it's a valid question why. Like, why didn't they buy software? Is it not a hair on fire problem? How much are they earning from this job? And what percentage of that earning is your software going to take? Because you want to price it right so that it makes sense for them. Like, are you pitching it in a way that you're going to be able to like help them enough that it's actually paying for your software? Or, otherwise, it's going to be hard to make that case.
It's so but I'll add on. I think this, and hopefully this is something here for everyone. And this is, I think it's a really provocative question, by the way. And there's a company I'm thinking of called Metropolis, which provided software to make parking management better at buildings like this. And the question, the top level was like, do you go sell parking SaaS, or do you just be a parking company and just do better parking? And that they chose the latter, and that ended up, I think, being a successful path for them. It doesn't work everywhere, but I just put that forward is that like, if you can have software and not need to sell SaaS, that doesn't have to be the model. So audit alternatives.
Great. We have
Thanks.
probably like 8 minutes left. So yeah.
Yeah, Chris, that'll be quick. Great panel. Thank you. I want Adam to double click on what you said, like enterprise grade software, making it consumer grade experience. So like, how do you achieve this? Like, how do you make the bullying aspect of enterprise grade software to like a better experience?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you have to use the product to see. Minimum investment's 10,000. So no, we it's honestly not that. I don't know. It's not that complicated. Like enterprise software, especially payment software, has to have a lot of security behind it. That's kind of just naturally embedded in what we do by using immutable ledgers to run everything. So we immediately have a cheat code where we can have like much more secure, trusted payment rails. But that's like backend stuff. It's so dumb and simple. It's like, does this feel like BlackRock or Venmo? And so if you go to the BlackRock website versus the Venmo website, you just feel a difference in the simple design. So we spent a lot of time thinking about like the difference in design experiences for a BlackRock institutional asset manager versus Venmo. And then we were like, okay, this is the vibe of this. This is the buttons and experience of that. Merge them together. So it really is, it's way more, it's honestly so much easier to do than it seems, especially if like the back office checks all the boxes, the back end checks all the boxes.
And it is really nice. I've looked at the website a lot and evaluated.
We've also had like 5 versions of our website, and like we had to like become a .com and do, so we messed it up too.
But it's really cool. I mean, if you've never evaluated investing in a solar farm before, because you're a normal person, I would recommend checking it out because it does like, it has all the depth that you will want to be certain, but it also has a good like kind of ease you into the water type of situation.
I mean, I'll throw out, I'm going to, maybe because I've suffered through this and maybe haven't been still like perpetually dissatisfied, I actually think making superb consumer products is really subtle. And I need to say as users, check out like Bard was like among a fellow like ex-Googlers. Like I think Google's gotten smoked by OpenAI in UI. Like I think the OpenAI experience is personally, I just think it's much better. And that's like the models of Gemini are like extraordinary, but it feels like losing this like catch-up race of like UI. So that's just like a user thing that I see really just like, how do you make it just incredibly simple and delightful? Maybe Robinhood is your sort of, example of something that's just like a great app experience. But yeah, constantly sort of searching for that. But I'll just say there is a lot, like the bar in enterprise software is extremely low. You just seeing people like empathy, like people deal with completely terrible software all day long. And so hopefully it can be delivered as a service to make their lives better.
Cool. All right. One more question for you, Luke, and then I want to get a couple more questions and kind of wrap up.
Just want to one follow up to that comment, not to be refuting anything that was said, but the value, the thing to focus on is your customers need to trust that when they give you money, you'll give them more money back. So it's not really about usability; it's about trust. Usability creates trust because it maps to their mental patterns of, oh, I use Robinhood, I use BlackRock, right? But it's not really about usability; it's about trust. So just focus on that, because I think as a former engineer, it's very fun to make beautiful products. I mean, I really like that personally, but that's not really the North Star.
Yeah, Microsoft products are not great, but they're good about a trust. Yeah, and their numbers show that.
Don't get fired for buying the software. Exactly.
Okay. One question to you, and then I definitely want to get to more questions out there. Thank you for having questions, by the way. I do cool it like that. Okay. Yeah, I really want to touch on this before we go, because EVs, they're 100% of the future. Give us like 3 years, and we'll never have like internal combustion anymore. They're completely dead. Tesla is fully destroyed. My personal portfolio is not doing great. What's up? What's going on with EVs? Are EVs still the future? What's up?
It's not a very sexy market right now for EVs, given all the pessimism with Trump and rescinding subsidies and incentives. But what if I told you that you can invest in a market and it grows 20% year over year for the next 10 years? You'd say that's pretty good. It used to be 30% in the States, but now with reduction in subsidies, it's about 20%. So still really great. Globally, still 20 to 30%. I think the fundamentals are certainly there. And I think one benefit of a lot of these headwinds with the Trump administration is a lot of charging owners can't hide behind subsidies. Subsidies were only available in low demand, low utilization areas, for economic opportunity, really great for equity long term. But if you're trying to run a profitable business in 5 years, you probably don't want to build where there's subsidies in the first place. So now a lot of these companies can't hide behind, cheap CapEx. They have to think about maximizing OpEx. And that's where we come in. And I think, as long as consumers still buy cars, right? It's like 1 in 10 in the States, 1 in 2 in China, 1 in 5 in Europe. A lot of these Chinese EVs are really cheap and really good. So I think just the fundamentals are inevitable. Maybe it's going to be a little later, but that doesn't change all the pain points that we are trying to solve.
Yeah. And maybe just put like a finer tip on it for the last bit. What are like the forces that are adding up to give like strong tailwinds for the EV space, or for your space in particular, the EV charging maybe?
For tailwinds, I'd say, well, you need to decarbonize transportation to solve climate change. It's like a third of emissions. So huge lever, right? Utilities actually like EVs because it makes them more money. It's one of the biggest load growths, and then you have to manage it. It's really good for the grid because now you have batteries on wheels. That's another asset. How do you make money from that? Really cool for the future. And I think also a lot of real estate owners are waking up to this opportunity that it's another passive amenity. I was talking to some quick service restaurants. They're looking to make up for lost revenue from higher minimum wage. So they're like, oh, we can add EVs in our parking lot. Cool, let's add some chargers and make some more money doing that as well. So it's good for the world, but also good for business. And I think those tailwinds come together at the right time.
Awesome. And it sounds like there are like 4 different companies that could be built in exactly those 2. So awesome. All right, we have time for, I'm going to say, 2 questions. I've seen your hand many times, so you deserve a question.
Yeah, my question is about financing. I heard Peter talk about it from solar financing, and also Luke talked about it for EV space. What is it about these like renewable assets financing that's broken or missing in the industry today?
How to take a first cut at that. I think it's where to begin. I think it's broken. Well, broken or missing. It's just to say it is a there. People that are investing in this space, you need to sort of first kind of understand what is this energy asset. So like your most renewable energy technologies are, instead of a relatively low capital cost power plant plus an ongoing forever fuel operating cost, you're replacing that with a big slug of capital up front that needs to be financed over time. So it's like infrastructure finance. And then you get into, so there's the debt and equity mix. How do I know this is going to perform over 10 or 20 years? It's like, what is this thing? How does it work? That's like the top level question. And then it gets into, are there tax benefits? Are there state and local incentives? And that's just stuff that gets fairly esoteric fairly quickly. And so there are specialty firms who focus in that. But to the owner of this real estate building, it's, if you go to people that are just like, this sounds scary, I'm going to lose my job if I get this wrong. No. And that's the thing to overcome that we focus on.
We covered all of us right here.
I can at least speak in charging. Where to start with charging? I'd say, at least in charging, there's two players. There's who owns the land and then who operates the asset. Sometimes they're the same company. But as Peter said, it's expensive. One fast charging stall is like a couple $100,000. Then you get the interconnection, permitting, installation, utility upgrades. It can be many millions of dollars for a project. That's a lot of money for 4 to 6 ports, right? And it's very risky if you build it and no one comes. So often the site host who owns the land doesn't want to take the risk, which means these operators have to find sites, negotiate leases, take on the construction risk, take on the utilization risk, raise private equity, and convince that these cash flows are predictable and bankable. In solar, they eventually solve that with good software and smart financing. So you can go on Google Maps and model your solar farm and then predict generation and model the sun going over the solar farm. And then you go to a bank and they say, oh, I'll give you whatever, 10%. Charging, that does not exist at all because all of those demand profiles are completely stochastic and very hard to predict. We are coming in and solving that. But the reason why part of the charging transition is so slow is it's just so expensive to finance it. But I would love to see the market evolve and get cheaper cost of capital, like what happened in solar, with better data, better partnerships, better platforms, more investors. That's one big reason.
Okay, I'm going to try to answer this as succinctly as I can. So I think that there is essentially two countervailing forces, the forces of capitalism and markets and the forces of physics. The forces of physics would say that we want a distributed grid. It's better to have distribution, consumption, everything at the edge. The forces of capitalism are saying we want to conglomerate. And so right now, if you want to invest, the primary allocators into solar are banks, infrastructure funds, and essentially that comes from endowments and further up the chain. And so you essentially have this capital market that is designed for big funds to put big money into big projects. And so the reason why that works is because the economies of scale at work are micro. They're the transaction level. If it's going to cost me $3 million to get this deal done, I want to finance a $1 billion deal. And so the biggest challenge with financing projects, and that's really what our whole company is about, is reducing that 3 million to as close to zero as possible. Because if you do that, then you open up different types of economies of scale, where you're not just scaling dollars of asset value to dollars of transaction cost, you're scaling to investors or to new markets. And you're beginning to, the ultimate vision is to open up more parts of the risk curve to this asset class. Because if you think about a risk return spectrum where you have returns on the y-axis, risk on the x-axis, right now, infrastructure investing is a single point on that curve. But if you allow more market participants to enter, to build derivative products, to have it all automated at a cost of zero, then you're suddenly making it possible for the entire risk curve to be open, which opens more flights of capital into it.
Awesome. All right, one more. Is it? Oh, yeah, great.
I don't want to leave the panel without asking the question. It's for Cynthia, because I know this panel is about data and software. And you saw a situation like all of you on this stage today, and you applied a lot of creativity on using technology and software. You mentioned you're moving away from Tower AI, so I'm curious, like, where do you want to apply all these skills, all these flavors that you discovered so quickly for Taro? And why should we get excited about the potential of AI to build something new?
I don't know what I'm going to do next yet. I'm kind of in the stage where I'm kind of noodling and thinking and just observing. I think, the more ideas I go into something with, the less I'm able to observe, And so, I'm just kind of, I'm doing a lot of things that I didn't have time to do, like go to see the doctor and really basic things like clean my apartment, that I ignored for 2 years. And I think there's like a lot of exciting things happening in this space. And so I just kind of, I'm in this, people talk about this a lot about like second time founder, I feel like I'm a little less starry-eyed and a little more skeptical now, but in a good way, because now I know what things I could have done differently. I feel like I learned so many things in the last 2 years, and I feel like, if, whatever it is I do next, I feel very prepared to do. So it just is a matter of finding the right thing now. But I'm just observing.
Any space that excites you the most? Because I know some people here were in the career workshop, right, thinking about transitioning, and climate can be daunting because it's so big. So I'm curious, like from your perspective, like where do you see then the biggest potential, I guess?
I mean, I think things have changed a lot in recent months. I mean, weather monitoring has always been something that has been very interesting to me. I still see a lot of potential for that, especially, and I think it will increase as we go, into 2030, 2040. I think it impacts a lot of our lives and our assets in many different ways, just people losing money over like flooding, wildfires and things like that. So I think that is an interesting space for me.
Data and planet. Thank you, Cynthia.
Thank you.
Yeah, I definitely feel that things that you hadn't done because you're a founder. I just saw the dope disc for the first time in 2 years.
2 years.
No cavities, we're good. We're good. Okay, we are like 15 minutes over, so good news. The next step will be a happy hour where you can ask the questions you didn't get to ask. But before we go, all four of you are on stage. This is a great opportunity for you to ask for whatever you might want. So if you're hiring, raising, like whatever you want.
World peace.
Anybody have some extra world peace? All right, find them at the happy hour if you do.
World peace.
Yeah. No.
I agree.
I'm going to look terrible now.
How about follow it?
Yeah. No, so we're raising, we're hiring, you can invest in assets on our platform, you can talk to me, I like talking. So whoever, all of that is stuff that we're looking for. But I guess really the ultimate ask is follow us on our journey and find a way to be a part of it.
How do we follow you on the journey?
Oh, great question. Pluralfinance.com and at Adam T. Silver on Twitter. Adam at pluralfinance.com. We respond.
$1 billion. No, we are raising our second round of capital and also looking for more employees. So would love to chat with you.
Yeah, so if anyone's looking to start something new and wants to chat, I think the whole group would be willing to do so. So come say hello. Yeah.
What a giver. He wants to help.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you so much. This was I hope this was fun for everyone here. I kind of blacked out and just had a fun time talking to these four. And that concludes this panel. I want to call it the next person, but that kind of involves getting you away, and I don't want to.
We'll leave.
Thank you so much. This is great.